The TV license only applies to BBC programs, is what one comment said overnight. So in this video, I have to go through again just to clarify what the TV license applies to, because genuinely lots of people do misunderstand this. So if you're one of these, I mean this with full respect, and I just want to help you clarify it so that you don't get caught out if indeed you are worried about being prosecuted and you misunderstand it. So first of all, if you're new to me, I am Daniel Shensmith, a barrister of England and Wales, and I enjoy helping you to understand law on this channel. And I'm very pleased to say that I've just launched a new channel, Daniel Shensmith, linked in the description below, where I will help you to build wealth. So in this video, let's talk about the TV license. It's very simple. The TV license applies to any live TV broadcast on any device. So you could be watching it on, let's take a silly example. Let's say your fridge had a built-in LCD and it could connect to the internet. I mean, mine connects to the internet. I don't really know what it does. It does connect and I can connect via an app. I don't really know what the fridge does, apart from tell me the temperature. Like, I can do that by walking past. But let's say that your fridge could connect to the internet and show YouTube. You could log in and you could watch programs on there. If you could watch Sky News live on your fridge, you would need a TV license because it's a live broadcast. And so any live broadcast TV program from a television program company, you would need to have a TV license to watch or record any live program. This also applies to BBC iPlayer and obviously applies to any BBC programs on any BBC channel, which is broadcast live. Now, things such as Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, if they are not live broadcasts, you do not need a TV license. There's a little quirk whereby you also need a TV license if you're installing a television program set for the purpose of receiving a live broadcast. But that is less often prosecuted. It is usually that they believe that you're watching TV, that you don't have a license, somehow have got some evidence, therefore they take you to court. And many people plead guilty because either they are guilty or they fear being prosecuted and getting a criminal record. I'll come back to that in a moment because it's not quite as scary as most people seem to think. I mean, it's not great and I would have to advise against it, but it's not as nearly as bad as a lot of people think. And for reasons I'll come back to. But as I said, you do need a TV license if you watch or record any live broadcast service or watch BBC iPlayer. And that's regardless of the device. It could be a laptop, your phone, your iPad, or your fridge in the silly example that I used. Now, what happens if someone turns up and they want to come in your house to check whether you've got a TV license or watching live TV? Now, that depends on whether they have a warrant, because it's fairly clear cut. No warrant, no entry. You're under no obligation to talk to them. You're under no obligation to let them in. And in fact, you can, at that stage, remove their implied right of access from your property. And that can be done even by having a locked gate at the front. They are not allowed beyond a locked gate. You could just leave a sign up, or you could email them to tell them that you've removed their implied right of access. I've got another video I'll try and find. I'll put it in the description if I find it, that explains that in more detail. But the other scenario is if they do have a warrant, that's a little bit different, because then you are under a duty, a positive duty, to provide reasonable assistance. What is reasonable assistance? Well, if they were to say to you, help me to turn it on, assuming that they've come in, by the way, you would be under a duty to provide reasonable assistance in helping them to turn it on. Now, here, many people fall down into the belief that then they somehow go through the channels and find a live program and say, aha, this proves that you're guilty of the offense. Well, it doesn't. I mean, take my TVs, for example. I don't watch live TV. I haven't for 20 years or more. But if you were to go through any of my TVs, you would be able to get it to produce you, probably, I don't know, a live TV program. You might have to plug it into an aerial or whatever, because I don't have any TV services. I don't have Sky. I don't have Virgin. I don't use any TV services at all. But somehow they would probably be able to twist it and make it play a live program. That doesn't make me guilty of the offence. A lot of people think it does. If I were the barrister representing you in court, I would say that doesn't prove anything. All that proves is that the agent was able to produce a live program. It doesn't prove that you were watching it, because that's the offense. Or it doesn't prove that you installed it for that purpose, because that is part of the offense. If you installed it for the sole purpose of on-demand, like Netflix or DVDs or games or anything else, that is not part of the offense. But you are under a duty to provide reasonable assistance, and you can be committing an offence by refusing to comply to provide reasonable assistance. Nothing will really happen at that point, but what would happen is they would go back to court and say, you refuse to assist. But like I said, if you did assist and they say, aha, that proves that you're guilty of it, your argument in court is, no, I wasn't watching it, I didn't watch it, just because they were able to produce a live program, let's say by plugging it into an aerial, that doesn't prove that you were watching it, and it's watching it that is the offence, or installing it for the purpose of watching it is the offence, or recording it, obviously. So there are a few little quirks and grey areas here whereby you can make these arguments, and they can be unnecessarily aggressive towards you. I mean, in the videos that I've seen, to be fair, they are not aggressive. An argument ensues because the householder doesn't want them there and they don't want to comply and they don't want to have the conversation. They even film it and they put it on social media to say these are being really aggressive and nasty. But in the ones that I've seen, for the most part, they're not aggressive. They might turn up with the police and then the homeowner says, you know, you're being aggressive because you brought the police. Well, they might expect the police to assist if the householder's being uncooperative and aggressive. That might just be their experience, and that might be why they bring the police to execute the warrant. But like I say, if they have a warrant, that is a different story. I've got other videos where I talk about that. But very broadly speaking, just to overcome that myth, the idea that many people still hold that you need to have it only for BBC. It is not the case. You need the license for any live TV, whether you're watching it or recording it. And as a final point, a lot of people will plead guilty if they are prosecuted for this offence out of fear of being found guilty. Now, I said I would come back to why it's not quite as scary as most people think. Now, whilst it is an offence, this is a non-recordable offence. A bit like speeding. Okay, it's a very different offence from speeding, but it's a bit like speeding. It is a non-recordable offence, meaning it's not a criminal record as such. It wouldn't show up on a standard DBS check, for example. And if your prospective employer said, do you have any criminal convictions? Unless they specifically ask for non-recordable as well, then you wouldn't have to disclose it. Obviously, you can't be dishonest. And if they say, do you have any non-recordable offences, which they probably wouldn't do, because that would include things like speeding, and that's probably unreasonable, but that's a different argument. But unless they specifically ask, and certain jobs will ask, jobs of the utmost integrity, you know, for example, if you're applying to be a magistrate, volunteer as a magistrate, and they ask you for anything that you have. I don't know what the process is, but I assume the process is that they ask you whether you have any speeding tickets and all that kind of stuff. Because ultimately it's you've been found guilty of wrongdoing in the court. I don't think that would affect your standing as a magistrate, having a speeding ticket. But, you know, given a choice between one person that does and doesn't, then if they were stuck for a choice, they would obviously take that into consideration. But for most other things, you probably wouldn't have to disclose any conviction for TV license offences. But that said, many people do still plead guilty because they are fearful. And many people pay for a license because they're fearful of being prosecuted, even though they don't use TV at all. So if that's the case, if you don't use TV, if you don't watch or record live TV, if you don't use BBC iPlayer, and you didn't install any of the apparatus for that purpose, then you don't need a TV license. So I hope that helps somebody to maybe save some money or save you from fear. And in the meantime, I thank you for watching.